Hey, welcome back to the podcast. We're here with Alex Capozzolo, and Alex knows all about real estate and SEO. Alex co-founded SD House Guys and also Brotherly Love Real Estate. Now, these are two real estate investing companies based on opposite coasts, and he founded them with his childhood best friend. Alex owns and operates a portfolio of 17 units and one piece of raw land. And so we're all here today to have a discussion about entrepreneurship, marketing, and so much more. So Alex, glad to be speaking with you.
Thanks for the intro, and happy to be here, Robert. Thanks for having me on.
Happy to have you. And so what is your current passion and focus? What really just gets you energized and gets you jumping out of bed in the morning?
Besides surfing, I would say the pursuit of financial freedom. That's definitely what got both me and my partner hooked onto the whole idea of real estate and rental properties and things like that. So I'd say that is probably like my main driver and my big why. And that's kind of been our goal for the past couple of years, is try to achieve that. So
wonderful. And you're using real estate to do it. And why real estate? With all these things that could be done, right? You could be a lawyer or a doctor or create a whole other business and sell a product. Why is real estate your focus?
Yeah, right. There are so many things to choose from. Lots of different ways to skin a cat, as they said. Lots of different ways to make money, earn income, all that stuff. It was really the book that I read that sold the idea of passive income from rental properties that, at least for me, got me interested in the whole real estate thing. I have since learned that real estate, it's not as passive as you think in a lot of cases. Things break way more than you'd expect if you own a property, which adds to a lot of the expenses. And it feels more passive when you don't have a mortgage versus when you do. So those are just things that we've learned along the way. Still really enjoy going after the goal and kind of trying to add to our portfolio. But we realize it's going to take a little bit more than we first thought to kind of get to where we want to be.
And that's okay, right? That means you rise to the challenge and there's things to figure out. And what book was it that you read that got you down this path?
Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Okay,
yeah.
Wonderful. And I haven't read that one, but I hear about it, and I think I might have started it a couple of times. And so what about Rich Dad, Poor Dad? Like, do you remember, like, what specifically got you on this real estate idea versus just thinking about it?
Yeah, so it's by Robert Kiyosaki. I think a lot of people a good amount of real estate people say that was their first book. That got them kind of interested and into the space. What about the book? It's pretty eye-opening. The whole plot is like you have two dads. He has like a biological dad in the book, and then also a dad that was more of his mentor, and they did their finances and thought about money two totally different ways. So it's really just it helps you think about money in a different way than the traditional, like, get a 9 to 5, work until you're 65, then retire. It kind of opens up your mind to how you can use money as a vehicle and invest some of it and try and multiply that to get you to your goals and eventually get you out of the rat race if you're unhappy being there.
I love it. And you think about how our relationship with money, it's kind of it's super weird, right? That some people just have a bad relationship with money, and money almost like uses them and keeps them trapped in debt and poor, versus what you're doing, which is using money to purchase these sort of cash flow producing assets and building real estate. And so what is your flavor of real estate? Are you a commercial, residential, apartment, flipper, renovator kind of guy? What's your technique?
Lots of different flavors currently. Our bread and butter is probably residential single family rentals. We have a duplex and 2 triplexes as well, though, but mostly residential. Just because it was kind of the easiest to understand, at least when we were first getting into it. So we've kind of stuck to that since we've at least learned the Philly market, which is where most of our rentals are. We've learned that market pretty well, so we've got that part pretty dialed in.
And so what does that mean exactly to know a market well? It's like, do you know like the neighborhoods, the rent, the crime? Like, what does it mean to know a neighborhood?
Lots of different factors. The ones that you just named, Robert, are all important for sure. Philly is interesting. It's very, and some other cities are like this too. It's very street by street, block by block. So even if you have a good grasp on like a zip code or a neighborhood and what properties go for, what what style of remodel you should do. Philly is just so like one block is super nice, values are great, and then literally one street down is pretty sketchy, unsafe, and like not a good fit for a flip and better for a rental. So it's like it's dialed down even to like what street is on, what block it's on, and things like that, and then different factors that to look at. I mean, we really just stick to comps, but we look at comps very deeply, and the closest comps we could find in a comp for your listeners, if they don't know, is just a comparable sale. So if a property sold one street down that's the same size, same shape, similar condition, you want to look at those values, and that helps you guesstimate what yours could be worth if it sold for a similar condition to that one.
And you hear a lot about this, of how it's important to kind of use your emotions as a tool and don't let it just guide you, and how when you see like a beautiful property, you might be tempted to just like jump in and let your emotions take over. But then it seems like these real estate guys that I know who are really dialed in, they're all about these numbers, and they look at the data, and they look at what sells, and they look at kind of the numbers and the house situation. And so would you say, are you sort of similar in that thought process, and kind of your emotions are there, but you really have to dial in on the data and not let the feelings take over?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I would be lying if I said my emotions didn't come into play. Just being a human, they're still there, even if I said they weren't. So they're there, but I would say what's helped dial them down a little bit and just think just more unbiasedly about a situation or in a potential investment opportunity is losing money. I think I heard some stat recently that like you remember a traumatic event like 10 times more vividly and clearly than like a positive event in your life or something like that. So it kind of goes with investing too, right? It's like, yeah, you flip a property, you make 15 grand, high fives all around, it's great. And then, that kind of fizzles away, that high and that feeling that you have from that. But when you lose money, the sting is there, the scars last. So I'd say losing money helps us just think about properties and investment opportunities with less emotions.
Okay, fair enough. So you use the pain and the failure for a good purpose, and that's an interesting insight. And it took me way too long to realize that, how the negative in your mind 10 times outweighs the positive, and then you kind of have to correct that a little bit on an entrepreneurship and a real estate journey, to take more risks and do more than what feels comfortable. Because if you just kind of settle in and listen to what your feelings tell you, then you'll be having that kind of 1 versus 10 problem, where like the pain and all the mistakes feel like 10 times of what they actually were. And so that's just great to think about, as far as focusing on the positive, focusing on the risk. And so, having said that, like, what do you think is a big, maybe like win, or a big thing you did right, correctly? Like, what are you proud of as far as your sort of real estate journey?
What are we proud of? I would say like integrity with working with people. In any industry, there's bad actors, or just, people who provide a service or a product that aren't, they're a little more shisty. They're not, their interest isn't out for the client or the customer, the buyer, whatever. For us, at least for real estate, there are a good amount of companies that they'll go to try and buy property from someone who's interested in selling. They'll get under contract for a certain price, and then they'll price drop them after that, right? They'll walk the property and they'll say, oh, actually the door's crooked and the foundation's funky and the attic smells weird. I'm going to pay you 20 grand less for this. And it's a tough situation to be in for a seller. They've invested their time at that point. They invested their money, still holding on to the property, paying their mortgage, their bills, whatever. So it's not really like we don't track that number, but I feel like, at least for me and my partner, that's the way that we always try to go about. If we are going to work with someone, we really try to avoid getting under contract with a seller unless we know we can do something with it. And we really we're not the whole bulldog negotiation approach. We're really just like, here's our number, it works for us, it's comfortable for us. If it works for you too, great. If not, totally cool as well.
Wonderful. So you avoid the bait and switch. And that's interesting to think about as well, that whatever business you're in is an expression or an extension of your personality. And so with this whole real estate negotiation idea, if you're just a shady person by nature, then it will express that as far as the kind of getting someone hooked on the sunk cost, versus if you make that point to be acting with integrity and with morals and be straightforward and mean what you say and all those things, then that's a wonderful thing to do. But even despite that, as you know, things can go wrong with real estate, right? With the deals, or the water pipe breaks or something like that. So do you have any catastrophic failure to share with us, or a fun story that maybe wasn't so fun in the moment, but it is more humorous to look back on now?
Hmm. I mean, yeah, we have a couple. Um, let's go with, yeah, I mean, we've had a lot of pipes break, so those are like easy stories to tell, but not, yeah, let's see. I would say there was this one situation we had. So we have a duplex, right? And it's in Philly, so it's like a row home setup. So all the homes are technically attached on this one block, right? Is how it's all set up. So we had this property, we've had it for like 2 years. It's a rental, and we kept getting calls from the tenants that their like the roof was like leaking, or the roof was messed up, and we had just fixed the roof and put on a new roof a year ago. Um, so we check it out, and we see that there's a massive tree from the neighbor's yard. Now that's overgrown, and all sorts of tree particles are going into our gutters, this, that, pine cones, pine tree, leaves, whatever. So we're like, okay, we should find out who the neighbor is. We don't know him. Call him, and then see if they are open to taking the tree down. We'll split the cost with them. We're even willing to pay for the whole cost, because it was just, if they would say no, we would be like, hey, we'll just pay for this. It's messing up our property too. We got to do something about it. So we call them. Well, we eventually have to research their number. We skip trace their property address, find their name, find their number. And it's this woman who's owned the property for like 20 years. It's a rental for her too. And she's like, oh yeah, dude, maybe I'll look at a tree thing, but do you guys know anyone who wants to sell the property, or who would be interested in buying a property? Is what she asked us. And I clearly changed my tune pretty quickly. I was like, we buy houses in Philly. We own the one next door. Let's talk. And it was a really long process. It took us like a year and a half to close, because timing wasn't right for her. But that ended up being like one of our better deals that we've gotten for the history of the company. So it's kind of cool that it led from we were going to pay to have this lady take her tree down, to ended up leading to a really great deal.
I love that. So you turned the problem into an opportunity and used it to help grow your business. And so that's wonderful to look back on and to think about. And so how do you maybe make some of these decisions? Like when you are saying, well, am I going to, buy a property, or get rid of it, or what, I mean, are there a ton of factors that go into it? Like you think about the location, or say you have your existing properties, and say there's a property way across town or one town over, how do all these factors mix together?
Yeah, it's very dynamic, as you're kind of alluding to. But for decision making, we just look at everything case by case. Again, it kind of just comes down to the numbers and what makes sense. Also, too, I think it's important, especially if you have a business partner, which I do. We do everything 50-50. We're constantly checking in on each other, because we don't always have the exact same goals. A lot of times we do. A lot of times we are on the same page, but it's helpful to do lots of check-ins consistently and just see where they're at. Sometimes I might be in the boat where I'd rather flip a house, just buy it, fix it up, resell it, make some money. Whereas other times and this is just an example, it's not how it always is, but maybe he would want to keep it as a rental, right? And think more long-term and park money in it for now. So it's just, it's important just to check in and kind of see what we both want to do, but we leave it open and flexible for each other. So if there was a case where a property came in as a lead and say, I'm thinking more long-term and I want to keep it as a rental, but he'd rather flip it now, we're open to the one of the partners keeping it as a rental, and we would pay the other one kind of half of what we'd expect to make from it. So we still make sure everyone feels met where they are, and we can still help each other reach our goals, regardless of if they're on the same page or if they're a little different.
I love it. So you're saying that you communicate frequently, and that you have some of these decisions or these paths figured out ahead of time, so that way you're not just like butting heads, or you have a way forward to get out of this problem. And so when we build a business, we always have to kind of figure out new skills, right? And something that you hear a lot about is with realtors or with real estate is that there's like at first you try to do all these things yourself and you're juggling a few properties and you can't do it yourself, and then you end up having to build a team and have assistants and employees and things like that. And so is that a path that you've taken? Have you built a team and had to figure out these kind of like delegating employer type skills?
Our business has definitely taken on a lot of different styles. So we've done the whole like hire cold callers and have them work certain lists and then bring the leads to us when they're ready to have an appointment or whatever the case is. So we've done that. We did that for like a year and a half or 2 years, maybe something like that. And it's a workable business model. I wouldn't say that it was our preferred style after doing it for a chunk of time. Yeah, it just felt like we were spending a lot of money with all the overhead and things like that. And also this was, leading into COVID where, in 2020, it was like the market froze and then it was no one was buying, no one was selling, interest rates, all this, it was all sorts of craziness. So it was like a weird time to also have more overhead. So I think we just kind of looked at the landscape and we're honest with ourselves about what style of business we wanted to do, and going with more of the lean model has definitely increased our quality of life for sure. So now we don't have any employees, at least underneath the roof. We have a transaction coordinator who helps us when we get a new transaction that we're working with a seller. But besides that, it's just me and my business partner at this point. It feels nice just having it be kind of lean and help, aligns more with our lifestyles as well. So.
And how about the property management? Like if a toilet clogs or backs up, do you guys get the call and handle it yourselves, or what's the situation there?
We did that for a long time too. Then we hired a property management company. We went with one of the cheapest ones in Philly. It kind of sucked. Got the runaround, and that was not a great experience. So then we were like, okay, let's take it in-house again, which we did. Then we brought on this software tool and used that, which streamlined it a little bit more with managing tenants and maintenance requests and things like that. And then we got to a point again where we were just at just enough tenants that it was kind of taking up a lot of our time. So then we reached out to people we know in Philly, other investors who have rentals and stuff like that, asked for referrals, which is probably a better place to start when looking for something like a property management company. And then brought another one on. So we do have a property management company now, taking care of things, working with tenants, handling the toilet calls and all that stuff, which has been very nice now that we found one that's a better fit for us.
What an adventure. Going with the bad company, but then now finding the good one. And so these last few years, especially, you hear about the software that's really taken off as far as with property management, right? As far as like taking the payments and dealing with the communication with the tenant. And can you explain that a little bit? And there's the social media side of it. Like, how has the software changed in these last few years to help out with your productivity?
It's like a lot of things with technology. It's scary now that it is just more entrenched in our lives, but we've found at least that like the more we embrace it, the easier it gets. So yeah, now tenants, if they have a maintenance request or something, they just put it in through the system, goes to our property management company, it's all tracked. Their text conversations are tracked, so everyone's, we can refer back to it, everyone's on the same page, all that stuff. So that's all really pretty helpful. Yeah, it's all pretty helpful, but it is also tough when we have older tenants who aren't as inclined with technology and things like that. And we have a mixed bag of tenants. So it's interesting balancing that. Whereas with some tenants, it's awesome, streamlines it, makes it easy. If they have an issue, they can FaceTime us and actually show us like, oh, there's this pipe leak. And it might be an easy fix, right? It might be like, oh, you just need to like tighten this thing. We don't need to send out a plumber and spend $300. or it's a major issue. So happy you showed me, it's going to leak all over the house. And that's helpful to know too. So yeah, it definitely helps with getting to things quicker. The tenants feel more heard, I think, too, because then if they have an issue, they can let us know right away. And there's a good chance me, my partner, property management company, someone will respond, especially if it's an emergency. It's pretty helpful to get that info out quick. So.
Okay, so faster speed and getting to those problems before they become huge. And I just read a real estate book yesterday where the author was saying something along the lines of like, kind of like what you're saying, of how the software and the portal and everything, it doesn't take care of everyone, because you might have those kind of the older, more like technophobic tenants. But even if it gets like 80% of your tenants are just like way better handled or more automatic, then that's kind of an increase. That's a net gain as far as you saving this time and kind of getting your life back, getting your time back, and more time to focus on growing the business and on solving these problems, as opposed to just like all this sort of back and forth. And so along those lines, my understanding is that you have this whole real estate SEO dialed in. And so what are you doing as far as the internet marketing side of your real estate?
Right now, it's mostly just trying to increase our SEO. Philly, we have pretty dialed in and feel good about it. San Diego, still kind of working and growing that a bit right now. Pretty competitive. We found that it's more competitive than Philadelphia, which makes sense. California prices are crazy high. Kind of more people trying to get their share of it and get their cut. So just trying to grow our online presence in San Diego is definitely something we're working on now. I'd say that's probably our primary focus.
And so what does that look like for you? Like when you say you've built up your SEO presence, what comes to mind is like you have like, social media, YouTube, if someone searches certain keywords like San Diego, whatever, or like street names, but what does it mean to you? Like to have your SEO built up, what's the picture there?
For us, it's been just focusing on the Google organic search results. We have some YouTube videos. I feel like that's a whole different type of SEO, is like YouTube optimization and all that, and making videos consistently. Definitely with like, it's like anything works, right? If you specialize and just do TikTok head on, it works. If you just do Instagram head on and you're the biggest Instagram account in your city, that works too. So it's really just finding a path and trying to be the best at it and the most consistent. Algorithms love consistency. That's pretty consistent across algorithms. And at least for Google, that's what we try to do. So we're blogging, try to blog daily if we can. Doing a lot of that and really just expanding the website as much as possible. Traffic from other things does help too. So we do YouTube here and there, but mostly just content and trying to out content our competitors with that actual helpful blogs and things like that.
And as far as that thought process there, the blogging consistently, but then also delivering some value, do you have anything to share there as far as either like your thought process or like one of your favorite blog posts that came together really well?
Yeah, thought process. If someone's thinking about doing a Google strategy, just know that Google is saturated. So they're not looking for more websites to say the same thing. They're looking for maybe more websites to just be, fill queries that aren't that thoroughly answered. So that's really been our strategy, is try to find keywords, questions that maybe have a couple websites ranking for it, but seems underserved as a query, as a question. These are more long tail, kind of interesting questions, regardless of which niche you're in. But a successful one for us, we don't rank for it that well anymore, but we used to. It was for Is My House Haunted? So I wrote this article, and it was funny too. I wrote it with like the most jokes I've ever written in one blog. So I really wrote it like very naturally sounding, like short sentences, not complete sentences, jokey, this, that. And that drove, I think we were getting like probably around 100 clicks a day at the most. 4 people dealing with haunted houses with ghosts in their house coming to us to figure out what to do. So it's kind of funny. But it worked because both of our real estate sites are about houses. So Google thought that "Is my house haunted" was relevant enough to still show it. So that was kind of a funny one and a fun one to write, and like cool that people were using us as a resource to deal with potential ghosts in their house.
That is funny. And you can imagine that if someone is searching that, maybe they want to move out of their house, or maybe they want to rent it out or something like that. Like, who knows what the end game is, or maybe they just want to do some home renovations. But either way, this is a problem that they're looking to solve, and there's search volume, and that is a path for them to find you. And so with all of your marketing and SEO that you're doing with your real estate company, like, who are you targeting specifically? Look, are you using SEO to get renters? Or are you looking to become a real estate mentor and get more clients? Like, who is the person that you're targeting?
Mostly just sellers. Yeah, mostly people ready to sell their homes, and this could be lots of different situations. Common pain points that we see when we talk to people after that they reach out to us. It could be people dealing with like a divorce and they kind of need to sell. Could be an inheritance situation, like if someone passes away and they inherit a property from their parents or grandparents. That's decently common too. Yeah, things like that. People moving in out of state, that's common, especially for California. People moving to Texas or wherever else. We've seen a lot of that. But really, yeah, just sellers mostly, and squatters is another one that we've seen over the past couple of years too. More so in Philly for that one, but people dealing with a squatter, not sure what to do, don't want to go through the 9-month expensive legal process. So they're exploring their options, and one of them is just sell the house with the squatter still in there. So that's also something that we help out with depending on the situation.
Interesting. Well, they call those motivated sellers, don't they? And so, if you're speaking into these motivated sellers of all kinds, do you have a number one tip, or is there something that maybe is not discussed enough as far as selling a property?
A tip for sellers, I would say, so something that we run into a lot that like ends up slowing down the process, and it's kind of hard to totally dive into it from the seller side in certain situations, but it's usually title issues. Like we've had people reach out to us, they're like, "Hey, I want to sell my house," and they don't even know that they have a massive lien on the property from unpaid taxes, water bills. Their mortgage is higher than they thought, all sorts of stuff that like you wouldn't kind of expect at first. So things like that end up messing, kind of making the deal blow up later, just because it's out of our hands and the numbers are off at that point. So things like that. And then inheritance is another one that's kind of tricky, because oftentimes, we've dealt with situations where the say a person inherits a property from their parents and they have 6 siblings, and then we have to talk to all 6 siblings and get them all on board. Oftentimes not all are on the same page. So it's a really dynamic and complicated situation with those ones. So I would say if you're from the seller side, I would just say try and prepare as much as you can and do know what you would need coming into it. It's these are things that we help out with as well, but it would at least make the process faster and easier if they came to us knowing that stuff in advance, which I know is also tough, but certain situations it could be possible and helpful.
They say plan for the best and prepare for the worst. And you're so right that there are so many hidden, dirty details that are sometimes just buried in whatever kind of real estate transaction that you want to make. And it can be scary and it can be painful if someone is looking into some of these things for the first time, looking into the title or dealing with this inheritance situation, dealing with the squatter. And so it makes complete and total sense why someone would need and want the help of you and your business partner to navigate this. And so how can someone do that? Like, how does someone know if they are kind of a qualified prospect to contact you, and how do they make the next step? What's the call to action?
Reach out to us. So if you're in the Philadelphia County area or San Diego County area, just reach out to us. So for Philly, it's brotherlyloveproperties.com. For San Diego, it's sdhouseguys.com. And you can fill out your information. within a couple of minutes, we would give you a call, learn about the house, anything that you have going on, and then pretty shortly after that, get you a quote where we feel confident and comfortable. And like I said at the beginning of the conversation, Robert, is we don't like to move forward and get things in writing and make things official unless we are very confident that we can help out that person, that family, whatever their situation is. So they'd have an offer from us that would be as good as it gets, and they can be confident moving forward.
Wonderful. You're a couple of straight shooters. You're serious guys. You act in good faith. And that is brotherlyloveproperties.com and sdhouseguys.com. We're talking with Mr. Alex Capozzolo. And as we wind down our conversation here, Alex, I think it's always fun to end with a bang instead of a whimper. And you're a well-read guy. You've read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and all kinds of other things. Does anything come to mind if I ask you for a quote or lesson that has helped you a lot, or will just help us in our situation right now today? What comes to mind as far as a quote or lesson?
Forget who said the quote, but it is something along the lines of, you never fail, you either win or you learn. So that was a big mindset shift for me, especially for starting our business, because you fail so many times and so many things don't work out. You lose money, you spend money on this marketing thing that's a total bust, and then you're depressed. So if you just look at it a little differently, especially for people just starting out or people looking to grow, is that there's naturally bumps and failures along the way, but it's not really a failure if you don't view it like that. So if you can just try to tease out or take any kind of lesson from something that didn't feel like the ideal situation, it can really help you, keep your morale, help you move forward with all that, with that morale and with that, you're not losing speed, but also just helps you find what works sooner.
Fantastic. Find what works sooner. The problems are a part of it, and it's not a failure if you learn from it. Alex Capozzolo, SD House Guys, wonderful speaking with you.
Thanks for having me on, Robert. This is fun. Appreciate it.